Hello, I'm Dave and this is Logan, out once again for a walk in the countryside. Thanks for joining us. But today I'm situated high up on Roundway Hill in Wiltshire, looking down on the hamlet of Roundway, just on the northern outskirts of Devizes. And we're going to be walking a roughly 6.5 mile circular route. We'll start off at one of the iconic Wiltshire White Horses before heading north along a section of the Wessex Ridgeway that crosses the site of an English Civil War battle. We'll then pick up what was once an old turnpike road heading west towards the village of Heddington. We'll have a quick wander around there, and then we'll head south, climbing Beacon Hill to the Iron Age hill fort at Oliver's Castle. And we'll finish picking up a section of the Mid Wilts Way back to our starting point. And I expect there'll be plenty of interesting things to see along the way. Now I'm filming at the end of August. The sun is out, a fair bit of blue sky, a little bit of wind, but we should be okay. Should be perfect conditions for walking. Do come along with us. Okay, well I've parked my car at a little car park at the top of the hill. I mentioned the White Horse, and that's the first thing that we're going to look at. And here is the White Horse just behind me. Now obviously they're designed to be seen from a distance. It's difficult to get an idea of what it looks like when you're up close. I might have to put some pictures up and even a bit of drone footage as well. It's the youngest of the 8 white horses in Wiltshire. Now, way back in 1845, a white horse was cut out on the side of Oliver's Castle hill fort to the west of here, and we'll see Oliver's Castle at the end of the walk. It was known as Snob's Horse, as it was cut out by local shoemakers. The word snob was the local name for a shoemaker, but the outline of the horse became lost by 1922. Although I have seen some photographs on the internet taken in more recent years where, when the conditions are right, part of the outline of the original horse can be made out. But a new horse was cut out here on the side of the hill in 1999 by a group of 200 local folk to mark the forthcoming millennium. It was designed by a chap called Peter Greed, who in fact was a former pupil of Devizes Grammar School. Peter sadly died in 2008. The design was based on the older horse, however the new one was much bigger. It's actually 150 feet long and 148 feet high, and it's the only one of the 8 Wiltshire white horses that faces to the right, and it's also the only one moving rather than standing. There is actually a little gate into the enclosure where the horse is, so it looks as though you can get up right close to it. I tell you, I always find these white horses quite fascinating. Of course, the great thing about them is that you normally get some terrific views, and no exception here, just looking over to the south. Quite a hazy morning still, but the scenery is still quite breathtaking nonetheless. Well, up here on the hill, very close to the Devizes White Horse, there's a little information board that tells us that we're on the White Horse Trail, which is a 90-mile or possibly 93-mile long distance path established in 2000 that links all of the 8 white horses in Wiltshire. Okay, well, we're now going to leave the White Horse and initially head northwards on a bridle way on a long distance path, the Wessex Ridgeway, which is a 136-mile long distance path that goes from Marlborough in Wiltshire all the way to Lyme Regis in Dorset. And we're also on part of the Mid Wilts Way, which is a 68-mile long distance path that goes from Ham near the Berkshire border to Mere, very near the Somerset border. Now, a little bit of interesting information here that I found out when I was doing my research. I'm just about to cross what used to be what must have been a Victorian rifle range. It shows on an 1880 map, but interesting, it doesn't show on any map after 1900, and it was about 1,000 yards. And the shooting positions were over to the west, and then the targets were over to the east. Well, we're continuing to head northwards along this track, and we're just passing through the site of the Battle of Roundway that took place on the 13th of July 1643. It's often considered one of the most successful victories by a royalist army in a battle during the whole English Civil War. As far as the details of the battle are concerned, well, a chap called Lord Wilmot commanded a royalist force of about 1,800 men, and he was assisted by 2 others, Lord Crawford and Sir John Byron. They also had Sir Ralph Hopton's royalist force of about 3,000 men who'd been staying in Devizes. Now, they were up against a parliamentarian force of about 5,000 men under the command of Sir William Waller. It all ended up with the Royalists defeating the parliamentarians. The Royalists lost between 150 to 400 men, but the parliamentarians lost something like 600 men, with 400 to 700 captured. But a key moment during the battle occurred when the parliamentarian force tried to flee towards the hilltop fort to the west, and we'll see that later on. And they were pursued by the cavalry brigade led by Sir John Byron. Basically, they were forced to gallop over a 300-foot precipice at the edge of the down. Now, just before we leave this track and start heading westwards, somewhere in this field, I think there was once a rectangular earthwork. It certainly shows on a 1901 map, but it doesn't show on a current Ordnance Survey map. I guess it's all been ploughed over. I wonder if it was once an ancient stock enclosure. I don't know. Now, this is an important part of the route for those folk that might be doing the walk after watching the video. We've come to a sort of crossroads of tracks, and here we start heading westwards. Now, come across this stone. I can't quite read what it says. OB on the top, and then 18 something 7, I don't know. On the Ordnance Survey map, there is a milestone, but a little bit further along. So unless this is the one, it might have been moved. We'll have to keep our eyes peeled as we head along the track. Well, no sign of this milestone just yet. I think the reason it's here is that this may well have been the old London to Bath road that was turnpiked in 1713 and then dis-turnpiked in 1790. I may be wrong, of course. Oh, brilliant. We've found it. Well, Logan found it anyway. So the milestone is still here. I always love to find boundary stones and milestones. I never have much success in Dorset, but lovely to see we've got one still here in Wiltshire. And it's in good condition, isn't it? We're just looking over to the north as I'm heading along this track westwards. That hill there, I believe, is called King's Play Hill. I wonder if it was named after the battle victory. Possibly. As the sun goes in, temporarily I hope, we've come to a fork in the road. We're now going to turn right and head down into Heddington. Oh, I think I've spotted some blackberries on the side there. Oh, have a look. They're big, but they're quite hard. Wow, are they going to pass the test? Yep, I think so. Well, we've now dropped down into the little village of Heddington. I say drop down, that probably means we've got an uphill section when we leave. Let's have a little wander around anyway. Oh, what a pretty church. The Church of St Andrew. There was a church here around about 1130 when it was given to Monkton Farley Priory near Bath. It then passed to the Crown after the dissolution of monasteries. The present church actually dates from a 13th century building when the south arcade was added to the rebuilt nave and chancel. A north arcade was then added in the 14th century and the tower and porch added in the 15th century. It also has a northeast vestry. There were major alterations in the 17th century and restorations in 1840 and 1976. I think it's got 6 bells. It was dedicated to St Andrew in 1491. Well, there's the old school, built in 1833, certainly shows on an old map, and right next to it is the new and current school, Heddington Primary School. Now, looking at an old map, I think that was the Workman's Club. I see it's got a plaque outside, 1881. Oh wow, what a quite gorgeous pub with a thatched roof, the Ivy Inn. Apparently it's got a 17th century timber frame. It was a pub by 1885 at least, and indeed it shows as a beer house on a 1901 map. But sadly, it closed last week. It's currently up for sale, which is a big shame. I hope someone buys it and it reopens. Oh, what a pretty little village. Although disappointing news about the pub. It's just after midday. That would have been perfect, but there you go. Right, we're now going to initially head westwards and then southwards, uphill towards Beacon Hill. Well, just a little pit stop as we have Heddington on our right. This is just looking over to the north. The crop in front of me yet to be harvested. But, beautiful scene, isn't it? An interesting fork in the track. There are no way markers at all. I think we go left. Oh well, we'll soon find out. Little update on the route. We've just come through a track through those trees here and across a byway. I think that's that old Turnpike road that we were on earlier. Anyway, we need to cross it and continue heading southwards. Now at this point you have got 2 choices with the walk. You could in fact carry on up the old Turnpike road for a slightly easier walk to Oliver's Castle. Alternatively, you can do the route that I did along the bottom of Beacon Hill. That way you get a much better view of the castle. Well, I'm pleased to say some of those horrid black clouds appear to be going away and the sun is back out, which means we can really enjoy some of these views. So this is looking over to the west. Looks like there's a crop of maize in front of me that not doing that well. Where are we? End of August. It's got some growing to do, that's for sure. Oh, what a quite breathtaking sight. So this sort of hill in front of me, or at the top of it, is Oliver's Castle, which is an Iron Age hill fort built around about 600 BC. Sort of Bronze Age, Iron Age and Romano-British finds have been made at the top though. Basically there's a single bank and ditch enclosing about 4 acres, and there are post holes for gates in the eastern entrance. It gets its name, well, I think, from the association with the Civil War battle around these parts, although Oliver Cromwell was never actually present at the battle. And it was used as a location for the film 1984, which actually came out in 1984, based on George Orwell's 1949 book. And the film starred Richard Burton and John Hurt. And there was a scene where Hurt, who played the part of Winston, looks out across the golden country of which he had dreams about. And I think that scene was filmed at this exact spot. Well, just before we start our ascent to the top of Oliver's Castle, let's just take in some of these views over to the west and the south. Of course, so many of the fields now have been harvested, so they look quite brown. Well, we're still making our way uphill towards Oliver's Castle. Now, I'm guessing this little valley here, this must be the infamous Bloody Ditch that I was talking about earlier on, where all those parliamentarians met their deaths at the Battle of Roundway. Well, we've made it to the top, and the views from up here are quite spectacular. So this is looking over to my right. That's actually Beacon Hill on my right. And then just looking down into the valley, you can see the path that we've just made our way up. And then this is looking over to the sort of southwest. And then over here is the side of the hill fort. Just stunning. We're just on the eastern side of the hill fort. Looking down there, there's a lovely wooded area. I think it's called the Roundway Hill Covert, and it's 68 acres of basically wooded area broadleaf mainly, I think a lot of ash in there with 2 or 3 open grass areas. Well, we're very much on the homeward leg now. We've left the fort and we've been heading eastwards along a section of the Mid Wilts Way. We're just about to go into a bit of woodland and then that's going to take us back to the car. The woodland appears on most maps as the plantation, and it was established in the 19th century. I think it's mostly beech trees and it covers about 11 acres. I see these days it's known as the Leipzig plantation after the Battle of Leipzig in 1813, which was one of the crucial battles in the Napoleonic Wars. It's also known as the Battle of Nations. But I'm not sure as to what the Battle of Leipzig has got to do with the area around here. I mean, there were British troops involved in that battle, but only something like 145. I guess there must be some sort of connection. Oh, what a lovely way to end the walk. Very, very peaceful in here. And indeed, it is predominantly beech. And the sort of track goes through the middle. So you've got a little avenue to walk through. And with the sunshine coming through the foliage. Very pretty. Well folks, we've come to the end of our walk. We thought we'd do the end scene here up on the eastern side of the hill fort. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do give us a thumbs up and a like, and do leave a comment, and do check out our Facebook page, Dave's Countryside Walks. We had a super walk today, and the sun when it came out was quite glorious, and some of the scenery was quite spectacular. So until we meet again, thanks for watching, and cheerio. Good boy.